Hello, my friends. Welcome to Prime Strings. I'm Henriette, and welcome to this live broadcast, as it's officially called now. As you may have noticed, I have got some new software to try out, and some very friendly people have helped me set it up about an hour ago. So thank you all so much. And this is a session that I call Henriette Goes Live. We have it about once a month. And this is where you, as my audience, can ask questions. So any questions that may have come up during your playing, any questions that you may have thought of during the past month, and I should be very happy to answer them, and I'll do my very best to answer them to the best of my ability. So what we usually do, just to get familiar with how things work, is you can see a chat box. And in that chat box, you can write me messages, and I'll write in my chat box, I'll write a message saying, hello, everyone. And then you hit send, and the message will send. Do give me a message just to check that the software is working. And as I said, I was trying this out because you may have noticed, if you have attended earlier live classes with me, you may have noticed that, I'm just seeing that we are actually going live. Yes, you may have noticed that in earlier live streams, I have not been playing very much because it was very difficult to get a good sound. And I'm hoping that having installed this new software, the sound will be a lot better. So if anyone is here, do give me a sign of life so that I know that I'm not just talking to my computer here, but that someone's actually watching. I'm just going to check that it's actually working okay. To see if we're actually live for real. It looks like it's all working. So if anyone's here, do give me a thumbs up. It'd be nice to see you here. I've lost my chat box now. Hang on a minute. Oh, there we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live class. I can't see anyone being here. Let's see. To see if we're actually live for real. Yeah, it looks to me that we're live okay. No. So I'll just wait a moment before we continue. Let's see if there's someone here who might say hello. Looks like we're live. Are we not live then? I might just check here. Like it's working. So let's just go ahead. I noticed that somebody else has entered the live stream, so very welcome to you. Hello, Pam Eden, waiting with you. thank you for giving me that sign of life, because for a moment I thought I'm just talking here in my own room to my own computer. So welcome. Normally we'd say, let us know where you all are. So if you're here and I don't know where you are, Pam, do write down where you are. I am in Norwich, UK. And that is where I live and where I'm teaching from. So if anyone else comes in, then please join us here in this chat. Now, normally this live chat is for members only, but as I was testing this new software, as I said, I'm quite new to how this all works, and there are hundreds of buttons here in front of me, so bear with me if I can't quite find the right one. I have installed this new software to make the sound a little bit better, so that if someone asks me a question, how do you do this, so I can actually show you rather than pretend show you like I used to do this before. And I am hoping that this will improve it. Oh, you're from the US. Now that is really, really good to know. Welcome, Minnesota. So if you've got a question, then please ask in the chat box. As I was starting to say a little bit earlier, normally I would have members of Henriette's Violin Club that can ask questions, but today I've opened it up to everyone, people who are not members either, because there were some very friendly people when I was testing all this new software, and they were telling me that I had sound but no video. So I thought it's not very nice to those people if they haven't got access to the real thing when it comes. So if you feel that at the end of this session you like it, you might consider becoming a member of Henriette's Violin Club. So I can see now that there's some more people here. Can whoever wants to get started kick us off with your first question? And this is very much an opportunity for me to connect with you. Hello, Christopher Paul, Buffalo, New York. Welcome to this class, and thank you so much for getting me going about an hour ago. So that was a great help, knowing that things weren't quite working as I was hoping. So thank you so much. As I was saying to the people who were there a little bit earlier, normally this live class is for everyone to listen in, but for members of Henriette's Violin Club to ask questions. But like I said before, this time, because I've had so much help from friendly people who just happened to be around an hour ago, I thought I'd open it up for you to ask questions today. So if anyone has a question about violin playing, I'll do my best to answer it. Malaysia. Now that is, for me, it's all so very nice to see where everyone's from. And I know, and if you look at my website, programstrings.com, then you can see that I have pupils now on every continent, and I'm absolutely delighted. So I welcome you from Malaysia and from Minnesota and from Buffalo, and you're connected to me here in the UK. So let your questions come through, and if that takes a while, then I will carry on and answer some questions from people who will watch this stream a little bit later, who have asked me a question because they have lessons with me. Let me see. I just started your course as a left-handed player that recently departed a visual art career. Having to reverse everything, but I'm doing... well, that's interesting that you mentioned that you're having to reverse everything. That will be very, very challenging for you to do. Most left-handed players that I know who are violinists actually play the same way around as right-handed violin players, funnily enough. And I think it really doesn't matter whether you're left-handed or right-handed, so long as your highest string is on the right hand side, if you know what I mean. So if you look at my strings like this, my E string, the highest one is on the right hand side. If you're having to reverse your strings, I think that would be extremely challenging. So you might consider just playing on a normal violin which is strung the normal way, and then learn as a left-handed player. You will find this bit perhaps a little bit easier than right-handed people. but I think the right-handed people will find the bowing slightly easier. So there isn't really much in between. So left-handed people will find the left hand a bit easier maybe, and the right hand a bit more challenging, and right-handed people just the other way around. Having your violin, you can't just string the violin the other way around, because the inside of the violin is a bit different then. So normally violins have got a bass, all the time violins have got a bass bar in the at the underside of the belly of the violin, the inside of the belly of the violin, which helps bring out the bass notes in the violin. So I suspect that if you turn all the strings the other way around, that the sound will be very, very different. But I've got no experience with that, so you'd have to speak to a proper violin maker about that. So I'm glad you're enjoying your playing, and I would like to ask the people who are here how far you've progressed with your playing, so that I can perhaps cater to your ability in my answers to you. And the person from Malaysia said, yes, that's correct. I bow with my left hand as I have a natural feel when drawing that hand. My violin's a left-handed violin from Fiddlerman. Okay, well, that's very interesting to hear. So I hope if you have got a left-handed violin from Fiddlerman, it will be the good way around. Fiddlerman's very good and very reputable violin shop in America. So yes, that would all be, you can trust that will all be fine. But very interesting, and you are the first person I have ever come across playing on another violin, and golly, that will make it very, very difficult to follow the video. So much respect from this end. Super. So let me know, other people who are here, are you a beginner? Are you a little bit further advanced, or are you an intermediate player? How far are you with your playing? And I'm going to have to guess now. Take your time to write. In the meantime, a person who I teach and who will be watching this later because she's at work today, has asked a question about the music note H as it is used in some European countries, where it comes from. I'm not a musicologist either, so what I'm saying is how I understand it. There are two ways of thinking about it. You may have come across that sometimes notes are called H instead of now I've got to say it right, instead of B in some European countries. It happens sometimes in Sweden, I think in Germany and German-speaking countries like Austria, and also I think in Croatia, where people use the letter H. It comes from, if you think way back into history, when music, like the printing press had not yet been invented, and music was copied by scribes, usually in monasteries. And one line of thought thinks that some scribe, whilst copying the music, had made a tiny mistake, and that then got copied, and the letter B got mistaken for an H. So that is how the letter H developed as the name for a music note. And other, perhaps slightly more accepted ways of thinking about this is that it comes from the word Bach, the composer Bach, B-A-C-H, and he just wanted to write his signature in music, and therefore wrote the letter H as a note for the B, as for the note B. And you can hear this signature in some music examples, and I thought I'd just let you listen to one of such examples, and it's called a Bach Motif. So the Bach Motif, in German-speaking countries, the letter B is the note B flat. then you get the note A, then you get the note C, and then you get the note H, which is a B, and it would sound like this. Okay, so that is a little motif called the Bach Motif, with which Bach signed off his music in music. So here's another example. Can you recognize the tune? And you can find this tune in all sorts of music, and other composers have taken on that idea. So for instance, this is Schumann has used this Bach motif as well. You see, that is the same motif but set for the piano and using different octaves. And so composers started to use this, and this was just a kind of little joke by Bach. A little signature by Bach as well. So that is a little answer for a lady called Angie. So I'm just reading my chat box now. So I'm just practicing Twinkle theme before I progress on to day 6. And all of that with a reverse violin. I'm well in awe of you. That must be so difficult to do. Oh, here is Enika. We are waiting. Okay. And here's Mr. Christopher Paul. I consider myself further advanced. I can play through scales somewhat, and I'm rather good with the bow, but my left hand is weaker, especially with the vibrato. But I know that takes time to master. Well, now that I'm well impressed, and I can give you perhaps a few clues about vibrato playing, and I'm hoping that you will have watched my vibrato videos. And there are lots of vibrato videos on YouTube anyway. I am starting off teaching an arm vibrato usually, because I think it is easier to start learning from larger muscle groups. Vibrato, for those of you who don't know what it is that shaking of the hand that violinists sometimes do. And I start off with an arm vibrato because if you use larger muscle groups, it's much easier to learn than when you start with a wrist vibrato or with a finger vibrato. And you can imagine, if you use your arm for the vibrato, you use all of your arm. If you use a wrist vibrato, you use your wrist. And if you use a finger vibrato, you use your fingers to do the vibrato. So start with your arm and see if you can slide your arm up and down, slide your finger up and down along the string like that. Once you get familiar with that and it goes really nice and even, you might start to stop your finger on the string. You can perhaps see, let me just turn this way round. Can you see my fingertip starts to roll on the string? And then when I put my bow to it, and now those of you who've been here before can tell me whether the sound quality is better or worse when I'm, let me play you in a, there you've got your vibrato note. And this is how you can develop your vibrato. So well done for getting as far as that and starting to learn with vibrato. Why do we play with vibrato then? Because people didn't used to play with vibrato. Vibrato only came in sort of, well, what I was going to say is not strictly true. There is this famous violin pedagogue called Geminiani, and he was an Italian composer, and he was the first official violin pedagogue around. So he'd thought about how you would teach somebody to play the violin, and he devised a method for playing the violin. And he said what he didn't like at all was those people who were constantly shaking like they had a fever on the violin. So he was talking about vibrato and he didn't like it. So he said, you must learn to play without vibrato. But then as time progressed, after the Baroque period and people started to build more bigger churches, bigger buildings, bigger concert halls eventually, violinists needed a way to make themselves heard into those larger spaces rather than just confined spaces where playing without vibrato would be loud enough. And that is how vibrato started to develop. And over time it developed and developed, and instruments got louder because the instruments were tweaked a little bit so that they could fill the larger spaces. But that is why we play with vibrato now, to make our playing more expressive, make it a little bit louder, and to make the sound carry further. So someone here says, I'm a pre-beginner. Does that mean that you haven't got your violin yet? Maybe it does. So that is interesting. Very welcome here. And someone else says, I like that we not use vibrato. No, I can understand that people say, oh, it is complicating my playing. It is complicating the sound, because you have to have a pretty good intonation. So you must be able to play really well in tune already before you start to learn to play with vibrato, because obviously you're making the note, the intonation, waver a little bit, and so it has to be pretty strong from the outset. And someone says, if I want to learn to read violin sheet music, what do I have to do? Well, there is a very good course on my YouTube channel, and you might start with that. It is called Learn to Read Music Notes for Violinists. So I'll refer you to that course. It's like the thumbnail on the video has got lots of coloured music notes. It is probably on the homepage of my channel. So if you scroll down, because the most popular courses are on the homepage, so scroll down until you see it. I think it's called Learn to Read Violin Music Notes. I'm pretty sure it's called that. Christopher Paul says, I did watch your vibrato videos. They opened up a whole new world for me. It just takes practice, patience and time. And that is exactly what violin playing is about, isn't it? Patience and time. And then as much practice as you can. But patience is a good one, and just time. And nowadays I feel that time is my best friend when I practice the violin and when I teach the violin, because so often everything needs to be crammed into a half-hour lesson. Time is really what you need. And if you're not in a hurry, funnily enough, things progress much more quickly. If you think, I need to learn it today or this week, and you get stressed about it, progress is much slower than when you think, I'm going to start this now and I'm going to see what comes out of this. So you're having your priorities just right, Christopher Paul. Thank you for bringing that up, because time, practice and patience are the three key words as it comes to violin success. You can't see me? Really? Is there anyone else who can't see me? Or can you all see me? Oh dear. I think if you log out, Annika, and go, perhaps refresh your page on YouTube, and then look on the homepage again and log back in. And very true what Pam says, have everything, but the first step is commitment. Okay, I'm glad that you can see me fine. All right, so log out, refresh your YouTube page, and then come back in, and then you can rejoin this. And for all of those people who have not managed, if that is the case, to come in here, this video will stay on the channel, so you can always watch it back later. Please, what's your most difficult challenges that you had encountered since playing the violin? That is a very good question, Boateng Emmanuel. Thank you for asking that question, because it is a very good one to be able to be prepared for challenges when you learn to play the violin. First of all, Sorry, I'm just reading the next comment. Someone can see me fine. That is reassuring for me. Thank you. The first knowing that there are going to be challenges on your path. This is not something easy that you are learning. And that is part of the charm of it, I think, is overcoming those challenges and getting around to learning to play with vibrato like somebody else has. And then a whole new world opens up to you. So you get from one challenge onto the next one and gradually gets more interesting, in my view. And the hardest thing is to stay patient whenever things get very, very difficult. Create time. So it's all those things that we've mentioned before, and just go with the flow, not be in a hurry. The number of times, and these are anecdotes from my conservatoire days, the number of times my teacher said to me during a violin lesson, please go home, get out of this room because you are too impatient. You are not in the right mental state to learn to play the violin, where you've got to be open-minded, not angry, and just be relaxed about it. Things take time. So if you're not in the right frame of mind for playing, that was a very wise decision to send me out of the room. You might as well pack up again for the day and start again tomorrow. And you'll find it when you keep coming back, and there's your commitment that comes in. Pam, I think, said, come back to it time and time again. So if you're not creating the sound that you were hoping you would create, then just try it again tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and the day after that. And you will find that at some point things click. And this is completely detached from the time that we live in nowadays, where we're so used to having an iPad, press the button and something pops up. And playing the violin is so detached from that sort of lifestyle, isn't it? Of course, I love it when I switch on my oven and the temperature goes up. But violin playing needs patience and trying it again and trying it again slightly differently. And this is perhaps also what Christopher Paul was saying about vibrato. I'm trying it today. Today's not a good day, so I'm going to let go for today and I'm going to try it again tomorrow. And whatever level your playing is at, that is perhaps the greatest challenge, to not get frustrated and to stay patient and think, okay, I'm going to try it again another day. That's perhaps the greatest challenges. So, is there anyone else out there? Perhaps following on from the idea of challenges, is that a question that somebody else has asked me as well, is if you play in an orchestra or just starting to play in an orchestra, how do you quickly work out which finger patterns to use? That is also the same thing again. You might find initially that you play everything in the first position, and you will notice if you play with vibrato, you have probably Christopher Paul already learned some positions as well. And when you play in orchestras, it's sometimes not so easy because you get out of your comfort zone, and you might be asked to play notes that you've never played before, in that maybe your notes are a little bit higher this time than before. When do you decide to change position and go up and reach for those higher notes? And again, this comes with time. At first you might not see the patterns, but then eventually you think, did I change position in this place last time in my piece? And did I get to play a little bit higher as a result? You can try it again. So eventually that will become second nature, but it takes maybe a year, maybe 2 years, for some people 3 years. So you can't force it again, but you will get to see the patterns. And especially in orchestra music, of course, there isn't that much time. Here we go again. So you have to be patient and maybe work out a lot of things in advance at home. So someone else has asked here, I would like to know if playing the violin for a long time has impacted on the blood vessels and muscles around the neck. Yes, just like sports people get wear and tear from playing their sports. You know, you may have heard recently Roger Federer's had to retire from tennis because his knees, I think, he's had several operations on his knees, and at this moment he can't compete at the highest level. And that happens to musicians as well. A lot of orchestral musicians have got problems with their hearing, especially second violinists and viola players, when they sit in front of the brass section in an orchestra and they get that brass sound for years and years and years. It does affect your hearing after a while. Violin playing is quite hard on the body, like when people play sports. So yes, people do get injuries in their necks and shoulders. And personally, yes, I work a lot more sitting down now, because standing up is very hard on my back now and playing the violin all day, every day. So yes, you do notice it as you get older, that there is some wear and tear from playing the violin all the time. Now, I don't know your age, but I have never worried about this in my life, and I've just happily played the violin as much as I wanted, so we shouldn't over dramatize it. But yes, there is some impact. Honestly, I'm not going to shy away from that. That's really nice. This is Enika saying she loves All for Strings, the new violin course that is currently going, and I'm thinking I'm not sure how many lessons there are going to be in this course, but we're going to reach 60 for sure. So if you are thinking about starting your violin playing, you might start with the All for Strings course, or you might start with the Suzuki course that's on there. All good methods. And people sometimes ask me, what is the best method for learning to play the violin? And the best method, there isn't a best method for learning to play the violin. The best method is the person who is learning, who is the most patient, and who has the most time, and who has commitment and keeps on practicing. So in Dutch, and Dutch is my mother tongue, we say all roads lead to Rome. So whether you play this method or that method doesn't really matter. They will all eventually, maybe by a slightly different route, but make you a good violin player. But it depends on how you get on with your practice and whether you invest enough time. This is one of those things, isn't it? You know that book, 10,000 Hours. It takes 10,000 hours to learn to play the violin really well. That's not to say that you can't enjoy playing your violin when you're only just starting it and you haven't completed your 10,000 hours. That is a completely different thing, isn't it? Alejandra, hello, welcome. This is a new name. Welcome to Pro-Am Strings. How do you avoid carpal tunnel syndrome? Very, very good question, because it is a well-known thing for violin players to get carpal tunnel syndrome. As violinists, just like sports people, you have to listen to your body. And if you feel that you get this sort of nagging pain here and there, take a couple of days off and let your body recover. So this might have something to do with putting excess strain in your bow hand, in which case you might find the best tutor you can find and check over your bow hold so that you learn to play with less tension in your body. And when you learn a new skill, it's the same with whatever you learn, isn't it? When I first started learning to drive, I was holding the steering wheel very, very tightly. Not very good for learning to drive, but this is a new skill, so you want to learn it and do your very best. And as you progress and you learn to drive and you get better at it, you learn to drive with less tension in your body, and you can relax, so much so that they've now put a new law out saying you mustn't be on your phone when driving, because all these very relaxed drivers, they think they can send text messages while driving. So it's the same with learning an instrument or any new skill. Initially, you'll be very tense, and as you progress, hopefully you'll be able to relax into the movements required. Christopher Paul, notes sound different in different positions even though they're the same notes. Yes, that is definitely the case. Shall I give you an example now that I can play with this new software? You can tell me whether it's better or worse than before. So playing in positions, for those of you who don't know what that means, I can play some notes here on the E string, and let me play you this. Let me give you a good example. Let's go here. And now I'm going to play this exact same section in the fourth position. So now I've played the exact same notes on the A string. Let me hear what you think. Is there a difference in sound? Did you hear the difference? Let me play that again before I answer the next question that is already coming through. So I'm playing this same section again. I'm starting on the E string. And now I'll play it in the fourth position on the A string. Some of you spotted the difference. Let me just read the thing. Can you hear the difference? Someone says no. Okay, I'll explain it to you in a moment. Someone says no. Christopher Paul says the fourth position sounds more earthly, granular. Yes, it is meant to sound more introverted, a little bit more muffled. Of course, when you listen to sounds like that through a device, the edge will be taken off. So it's not as clear as in real life. Yes, there's a difference, says somebody else. Not in terms of pitch, but yes, in terms of depth. Big difference. Now, Pam, if you, as a non-player, you haven't started, I think, if I've interpreted that right, if you can hear a big difference, then you've got a good ear for quality of sound. The whole sound is different. This is, if I play it in the first position, namely on the E string, the sound is more open, it's more direct, it's, some people would say it's fresher, it's more immediate. It is clearer, some people would say. Now, for some kind of music, this is very suitable. If we have a piece that is very joyful and enthusiastic and expressive, then you would play it like this. Other people would say, oh no, I don't like this at all. I like the warmer sound, the more intimate sound, the slightly softer sound. You hear the difference? So you can use the positions as a means of expression. I'm using the first position, playing on the E string when I've got these expressive pieces, and I'm playing it slightly more introvertedly, slightly more quietly. If I have pieces that I want to perhaps be a bit more sad or a bit more quiet, or I want to give it a little bit more sort of a philosophical quality, you see, rather than the more outgoing quality. And you can call it whatever you like, so long as you hear the difference, you have spotted something that's really worthwhile. And again, I'm coming back to my same theme all the time, don't I? If you have the time and the commitment to start to listen to those sorts of qualities, whether you like version A or version B is completely irrelevant, but you go to a depth in your music making that is rather special, that you don't get from computers or iPads, you see. So that is completely different. So you haven't got an instant result because you're questioning what the result is. And one person might say, oh, I like the first one better, and another one might say, I like the second one better. The fact that you hear those different qualities is a completely different experience, isn't it? And I think, yeah, like Annika says, that is very, very interesting. And that is what I like about teaching the violin and playing the violin, is that you can create so many different shades. Whereas if you play the piano, whereas if you play the piano, you just hit a button and you get a sound. I'm sure that I've now offended many super good pianists, because I'm sure that professional pianists can make different qualities of sound by just having a little different touch to the keys. But the violin, this is why they say the violin is closest to the voice. The human voice, of course, can add those different qualities, those different tone colours, as we call them, very easily as well. Unlike any other instrument, string instruments can do it, and the voice can do it. With wind instruments, of course, the very, very good wind players can create those different tone colours as well, but you have to be very, very advanced. Whereas we on the violin, as an intermediate player, you will be able to get those different qualities already. Now, I'm just going to read back, because I have perhaps skipped a few comments, and if I apologise if you have written a comment and I've not responded to it, please write it again, because I may miss some things. Fourth position taught my steering wheel analogy. How much pressure on the strings? I feel I'm imprinting them. Will I eventually relax, or should I attempt to lighten up? Yeah, this is an interesting aspect that you bring up, Pam. How much pressure on the strings? Will I eventually relax, or should I attempt to lighten up? You can attempt to lighten up, but eventually that will become easier. So you might work your socks off trying to lighten up right now, and especially when you try to play vibrato. Vibrato comes when the body is ready for it. So I get parents sometimes asking me, why is my son or my daughter not yet playing with vibrato? Because his classmate has already learnt it a year ago. And that I can understand that sometimes is very frustrating, and you can learn to play with vibrato when the body is ready, when you have reached a level of relaxation that is necessary to be able to play with vibrato. So sometimes people start to learn vibrato with me, and I have to say to them, look, it's not coming, so give it a break, come back to it in 3 months' time or in 6 months' time, because the body's just not ready to do it. And it's the same with good tone quality. Yes, you might think, I'm going to try and lighten up a little bit, but if the body's not relaxed enough, starting from your neck and shoulders and your upper arms, then if I try to lighten up my bow, I'm going to put more tension in my shoulder joint, you see. So eventually you will be able to do that in a much more relaxed state. Now, if you feel your playing is really screechy initially, there is this fine balance between bow pressure and bow speed. When the bow goes very fast, it can handle a lot more pressure. I'll show you. Oh, I'm delighted with this new software. If this sounds acceptable to you at your end, then I shall use this again, because I can finally play in these live classes. So I'm playing on the D string, and I'm going to put a lot of pressure on. Brace yourselves, because this is going to be very screechy. A lot of pressure, and my bow is going to go really slowly. So there's no sound basically, it's just screeching. And now I'm going to put the exact same pressure on, and I'm moving my bow much faster. Exactly the same, but more speed. So there is this fine balance between pressure and speed. If I have the same speed now and too light pressure, look, I'll try and do the same thing. So now I'm having the same speed as what I had before, but no pressure at all. My bow's super light, and I get a sort of whisper. You see, so I wouldn't call that a good tone. I can use it occasionally because there might be sections in my pieces where I want this whispering quality as a tone colour, but as a default mode of playing, I wouldn't think that would be nice because the speed is too fast for the light pressure that I'm applying. So you want to find a sort of happy medium where your sound, your weight of your bow into the string is not too great. So you lighten it a little bit, but at the same time you've got a good speed so that the strings can handle that weight, you see. So I'll show you this now. I'm going to play like this, short bow strokes, and I'm going to gently apply more pressure and then less pressure. See if you can hear the difference. So this is a bit too heavy into the string. It hasn't got like a free-flowing sound, shall I call it. And this is too light. So I'm using the same length of bow strokes, too little pressure on the strings, and I lose the body, the carrying quality of my playing so that it engages my audience, you see. It hasn't got any sort of convincing qualities at all because there is too little weight. And that, as a beginner, is quite a difficult thing to find out, and it comes with experience. Again, we need time and we need practice and we need patience to find out, because there are so many different parameters. You can play so fast with so much weight, and then you can shift the weight slightly or the speed slightly, and maybe also the angle of your bow on the string. So it becomes gradually more complicated. So when you first start to learn to play the violin, you want to find that average good sound first, and from there you can then start to deviate towards the lighter shades of tone colours and towards the heavier shades of tone colours. I'm hoping that is not gone way beyond what you asked. Will you eventually relax, or should I attempt to lighten up? You could attempt to lighten up, but find that happy medium first where you're comfortable playing with the tension that you've got in your bow arm, especially at the given level of your playing. And then 6 months later you think, oh, I'm actually a lot more relaxed than I was in the spring or so. You can think like that. And it's quite nice, if you can bear it, to record yourself just a short piece that you have prepared, and then leave that recording, don't watch it anymore, and record yourself again maybe a year later and see if anything has changed. And that is the most motivating thing I can think of, because lots of people, provided they practice regularly, will have changed masses. So I've got a new pupil who's recently started, and she recorded a piece that she played in her second lesson, and now we're on the 10th lesson, and there's just this massive difference in playing. So I'm hoping that helps getting your motivation going. Let me just read through the rest of the chats. Yes, the violin can sing. Yeah, and children really respond. I'm just talking on from what I read here. I'm reading kids like the violin as their friend. And children really are intrigued usually by violin sounds. There are two groups of children really. Some that really like the high-pitched sounds like the violin, and others tend to like the more warmer, slightly lower pitched sounds like the cello. And I don't know why, but some children just have got a preference. Which is the best intermediate violin brand that you recommend? Very good question. I have to first, I'm not sponsored by any violin brand at all. So my answer is completely detached from any sort of value that there is in it from me. I still really love the Stentor brand. I think they're very, very good quality instruments. And you have got the Stentor 1 and Stentor 2. And the Stentor 2 is very, very good for intermediate players. And then you can up your game from there. So Stentor 2, and then there is a Stentor Student, I think, and then there's a Stentor Conservatoire. And violin players should always play on an instrument as good as they can afford, because it's always going to give you lots of satisfaction back if you can play on a slightly better quality instrument. It will make your playing easier for starters, but it will also give you much better sound, and it will enhance your progress much more quickly if you play on a better quality instrument. Okay, so I definitely say for intermediate players, Stentor 2 as your bottom range, and then up your game if you can do that, unless you're left-handed, in which case you need to go to Fiddlerman for a left-handed violin, like one of our friends here today was explaining to me. So there are many other really good brands, and if you look on my website, at the moment the shop page is under construction, but if you look in about a month's time, I will pick from Amazon the best quality instruments that I can find, and I'll put them on there in case that helps you. At the moment, there isn't much on there, but it is under construction, like I say, and you can find more information about instruments there as well. There's another website that's called violinplayercity.com, which I did about a year ago, and there are some really good. This is a comparison site that compares instruments with one another. So you can see the pros of this instrument are X, Y, and Z, and the cons of this instrument are A, B, and C. So you can compare the instruments, and I will make an announcement once that is fully up and going. But that is something that I'm planning to help people with as well, is finding a good instrument. But as a general rule, is buy an instrument as expensive as you can afford, and it's always a good investment. Boateng Emmanuel says, can I combine singing and playing the violin at the same time? It is definitely possible, and lucky for us and for pianists, of course, as well. Any instrument that isn't a wind instrument, please sing along all the time. It is one of those things that violinists always do. They always sing along with their tunes in their heads. So whether you play in your head, whether you sing in your head, I should say, or whether you sing out loud, it doesn't really matter, but you should always sing along with your instrument. Hello, and here is somebody from Jordan. I'm sorry, I can't read your name. I assume that is your name because it's spelled in Arabic letters, and I'm sorry I can't read them. So welcome, it's lovely to see you here. Enika also says hello. I saw your course going on these days. If I watch it from the beginning, can I learn everything about the violin and every techniques? Yes, you can. So you can start on my either my Suzuki course or my All for Strings course, and you can then go on to Suzuki Book 2. Someone's asked me, I don't know if this person is with us today, will there be a Suzuki Book 3? Yes, eventually there will be, but I've got a few requests from people before that, so be patient. We've got a real theme going here today, haven't we? But it will come. And yes, so in answer to your question, yes, you can learn to play the violin from scratch. Now, what a lot of people do is sometimes people get stuck, don't they? And in my experience, if you feel like your progress is not as it has been, or you feel that you need a little bit of help, you can actually book a one-off lesson. And some people do that, book a one-off lesson through my website. And sometimes it's just tiny little details in your playing that we can sharpen up. And that then again opens up a new trajectory for you to develop. So if you feel like I used to really progress until 3-4 weeks ago, why am I not progressing anymore? Then can I recommend, let me just check you over to see if you're progressing along the right lines, and then you might just have one lesson over half an hour and then you can get going. And lots of people do that, and it's lovely for me to see how people have caught on by themselves. And I am in awe of all you guys learning by yourselves, because a lot of good work is going on out there. And sometimes people get stuck and then they just get a little bit of extra information which is bespoke. So for each individual person, obviously things are slightly different, and then you can get going again. And the name of this person, I've lost you now. I had Safadi. Oh, hello. And that is nice. Thank you for clarifying that. Crickbone, all for strings, ABRSM1 and play along series. Yeah. Good suggestion for the violin brand. I'm an adult beginner, 50 years old, 8 months on, and lesson 12 long ago. From Finland. It is so lovely that you write where you're all from, because as I said before, I've got pupils on all continents now, and it's just lovely to see that so many people are accessing these videos. So thank you for joining us here, and welcome. My question is, what is important to play on the violin, the left hand or the right hand? That is a superb question, and lots of people will say it's the left hand, but actually in my view it is the right hand. The bow, this is for right-handed people, by the way. The bow is what makes the music sing on the violin, and the music in itself is then created, the notes, by the left hand. But if you haven't got a singing bow, you can play all what you want, but the sound is not coming out as nice. Suzuki 3, looking forward to it. And Christopher Paul. Now, this is perhaps a nice comment to round off on. And Christopher Paul is saying, I happen to be a virtuoso level electric guitar player who can also learn and perform virtuosic piano pieces. Now, there you go. I'm well impressed. But violin is different, and I'm happy to play even at a child's level for now. Now, playing at a child's level can be very challenging on the violin, so I wouldn't call it a child's level. Funnily enough, for us as adults, when we learn a new skill, it's altogether different from how children learn it. So I am, like I said before, in awe of all of you, how you learn to play the violin. And I'll give you a big clap here for learning with me on YouTube, and thank you so much for watching. Like I said before, today I have opened up this live class to everyone. Normally the live class can be viewed by everyone, so hopefully lots of people can benefit from it, but members of Henriette's Violin Club can ask questions. So if you have enjoyed this class today and you feel that you've learned something, please consider becoming a member of Henriette's Violin Club, so that next time you can ask questions again, because next time this class will be I was going to say for Henriette's Violin Club members only. That isn't the case, but members can ask questions. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for attending this class and for asking such relevant questions, because like I said, I am very grateful for all the ideas that you give me, and for coming back to my channel all the time. So many thanks, all the best to your learning, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye everyone.